Welcome back to Imperfect Parenting with Miss Brittney and myself, Ben. It's good to be back.
Thank you for coming to our classroom.
That's what it sounds like, Miss Brittney.
Which is kind of funny because it kind of goes with our meme a little bit. But
I just want to say first, I feel like we should warn these people.
We're in a weird mood.
We're in a weird mood today. I'm not going to blame you for it because I'm going to do that here.
Oh, thanks.
But let's see how this goes. This is going to be fun today.
Yep, it will be
fun. But go to the meme. Come on.
Our meme today is kind of funny because we just had so many encounters, so it feels very accurate. But it's kind of one picture on top and then another picture on the bottom. I don't know where this first picture is from. Rocket Man, maybe? I don't really know that movie, but it starts. You should go see it because there's a lot of detail I'm going to have to describe. But the top half of this meme is a normal-looking man in what looks like a seat of a car, and it's black shirt, nice hair, and then on him it says high school teachers. That's what it looks like. And then next to him is someone in a bright pink feather boa, some kind of feathered hat with obnoxious glasses that have like red lenses or something like that. There's just a lot happening over here. And it says elementary teachers, which if you think about a high school classroom versus an elementary classroom, that makes sense. The lower half of this photo, it says, meanwhile, middle school teachers, and it is a scene from 300.
Yes.
What's that guy's name?
I actually thought it was Gladiator 2. You said that. I'm like, no, you're right. It's 300. So
I've never seen the movie.
I don't remember his name.
Sparta.
Great movie. Yes, it's Sparta.
Am I right?
That's not his name. I think that's the army.
Okay, right. Well, I did not watch this movie because nothing about any of the photo attracted me to watching any of it. But I completely understand why they put that as the middle school teacher who's going to battle. He's probably yelling, Sparta!
Rally together.
Yeah, something like that.
We did middle school for a long time in youth ministry.
We did.
So we understand that.
We actually just got back not very long ago.
I was just thinking that.
From doing camp.
Yeah.
We were camp mom and dad.
We were, which is weird because we feel so young still.
I know.
But we were the oldest ones there.
I did have a middle schooler tell me that they thought I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, honey, I'm almost 40. And she's like, what? Like, you know what? You be my friend.
Been married 20 years, not age 20. Yeah.
But middle schoolers they're awesome. All kids are awesome, all their different stages. But I watched our middle school pastor, Emma Plume. I'm going to give you a plug here. She's awesome. But that's kind of what she looked like a few times.
Yeah.
And some of it was on purpose. Like, she led the game to this thing, and it was crazy. They're clever, but you had to entertain middle schoolers in a different level than
keeping their attention.
Mm-hmm.
They're in that really interesting phase, which flows into where we're going today. But yeah, middle schools they're something else, but they're also, when you catch their heart, they become the Sparta for you.
They are. You don't want an army of middle schoolers
working against you. Oh my gosh! Sure.
They will tell you exactly what they think.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about that, and one of them said, "Yeah, middle schooler walked up to me and says, how come you have a unibrow?" And they're like, if I'm insecure about anything,
they're gonna call it out.
They're just gonna say it. So, but yeah. So we're still having our conversation kind of around sex and what we're just trying to help keep it on the table for parents to not be so afraid of it. And we love to be able to lead you in this to help build courage. And I think the more we get to talk about it, the more that we, soften the blow of the reality of you can do this.
Yeah. And if you're just joining us, we talked through some of this with Seth when he was with us, and then we've gone through it as well, some more. And there's some more coming up as well. Mm-hmm. But it just feels so important that we do keep this in front of us, because what happens is when we shy away from this topic especially, we have to fill in the blanks, and then our kids have to fill in the blanks. Mm-hmm. And if we're not willing to bring some courage to it and some clarity and even some vision, then the blanks they're filling in are probably not very good, and it's probably not from us. It's probably their peers, YouTube, all the socials. That's where they're getting their information from.
Well, and louder and easier access as far as social media than ever because that's available. Where I think when you and I had our kids little, they didn't have that as much, and it's just gotten louder and bigger and all those things. But we get lots of questions though. When do I talk to my kids about sex? When is the right time to do it? Seth's not here, but he talks about good pictures, bad pictures, and they have 2 books, kind of one for a little bit older and one for younger age. He loves those books. We didn't have those books, so we missed that wagon. Glad you have that. So good pictures, bad pictures. I don't know who writes it. You can get it on Amazon. It's a great place to just have that conversation of when photos come up. Yeah. I remember Seth had a story about his daughter even when she saw a photo, but because they had gone through that book, she knew what to do. She knew to have conversation. So great resource to look into that. I love that. But when do you start? Like what's the earliest that you remember maybe talking to Lincoln, since he's our youngest one and he's the only boy?
Yeah, it's
which
true.
Feels like
it's different.
Girls want to know about love and babies. Boys want to know, how does this penis work? That's what I feel like.
Well, if we're going to get really honest, and if there's kids in your car, you haven't started the conversation, maybe pause this and come back to it.
Come back later. Or put your AirPods in.
Put your AirPods in. But I think as a young man, a little guy, this little thing that he has begins to respond to the morning, to something, to rubbing, like some things begin to happen. And he's like, what is this?
It's a toy.
Make her happy.
A built-in squirt gun.
Okay. This where it goes downhill.
Sorry.
No, it's funny. But it's real. This little guy's like, what is this thing? What's happening to me? What's going on with my body? Mm-hmm. And I think, one, just to normalize it, like, dude, this is part of life. This is what happens. This is something to manage and figure out. And not, I think what can happen right there at even like 5-6 years old is it can scare parents because they're like, oh my gosh, a penis in an erection, and I'm saying all the words today, means something bad happened. Or it's, there's something shameful going on. And, it's really just his body responding or reacting or learning and growing. And so it's wading into that. First of all, this is normal. There's not something wrong with you. It's not bad. Because if I introduce shame right there, then that begins to be the leader in this conversation.
Hey, it's Brittney here. I'm normally on the Kylo Show, yes, but I wrote a book. I wrote a book for parents, but I talk a lot about moms. So if you're listening to this and you're a mom who's frustrated, who feels like you're failing, who feels hopeless in this game of parenting that we're in. So if that's you, mom, buy yourself this gift on Mother's Day. It's going to be worth it. So I hope that you feel blessed and encouraged by my new book, Imperfect Parenting. You can find it at imperfectparenting.co.
And that's the part where managing yourself and all of how your children are being introduced to their parts and what happens when they rub them or something. That if you go right into shame, it just becomes a scary thing they don't want to show you ever. Yeah. Especially put it in the same thing of lying. Like if they lied and you reacted crazy, they learn, oh, if I ever admit to lying, I'm going to get in a bunch of trouble. So then they just keep hiding it from you. So that's part that you want to steer clear of. But I remember the girls, they were little. I don't remember exactly how old they are, but they were little. And I think Lincoln had an erection, and it was really kind of funny because they're like, "What is happening? what is looking at me?
It's alive."
Totally. And I just even having the conversation of, all right, well, we don't have this, and that's going on. And Lincoln's just looking at him like, what?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do about this? Because he was probably 4.
Yeah.
And so just having the conversation of what's happening to his body, that he can't necessarily control it sometimes, and which then starts, especially Delaney, she had all these questions because she was older. And Adeline was kind of like, that's weird, and moved on. But the being able to talk about this and not having any fear around it is a big thing. I think the firstborn child that you have, I feel like they miss out a little bit on understanding where babies come from, understanding kind of the process. My kids were never in the room when I had a baby, so they didn't get the full experience. Some families do that, so that's a whole nother like introduction to this. But the oldest child is like, you have to teach them some of these things because they miss, welcoming it into the family. Like where Adeline had Lincoln and Delaney at that point had already had Adeline. And so the more babies that come into your home, the easier it is to kind of discuss and talk about how we get there. And again, we've always hit more about knowing age appropriate. So I wouldn't be going into the acts of sex, like what is actually happening until you've got a child that can maturely handle that. Know your kid on that one. So I'm not having probably in-depth conversations at all with a 6-year-old. I don't know that we even really had in-depth conversation with Delaney until she was probably closer to middle school. Same with Adeline, because that's the age where they know that there's stuff going on with their body. They've got some stuff, hormones are starting to develop. When they're younger, I feel like it's lots of mommy and daddy love each other, and we have something called sex, and that's how we make a baby, and it's this beautiful thing in marriage. And so we still use the correct terms, but I don't feel like we're getting the nitty gritty out there.
But I think even at that young age and very, very, very elementary description, mommy and daddy love each other, and when sex happens, a baby comes out sometimes.
It's true.
But just a description of when a mommy and daddy love each other and they're married, there's this foundation being laid already of an understanding of what it looks like to build a family.
And covenant. We've always talked really big around covenant. That's why we have, sex is because we have this marriage covenant. It gives us this this door to this beautiful covenant that we're protecting. And so the more we talk about covenant, sex and covenant kind of feel like they flow together. It's not one without the other. And that's kind of what I would hit on more so is this devotion, this protection, this almost fight for mommy and daddy doing a good job. And we've even had this language with going on dates or going out. If mommy and daddy have to protect our time. This is all the language did when they're really little. And I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I'll say it again because it's just a hilarious story. But when Delaney was in 4th grade, she was 10. We just moved down here. And, that's when we first got introduced to the sexting conversation. This boy said he wanted to sext her, and which she did not know what that meant. It's just great. Just recently, Adeline she's going to be in 8th grade, and she did this course in her class called TikTok. I don't know. It's not TikTok. It was like something play on words, really clever.
Using social media for good.
Yeah, that's the baseline of it.
But it rhymed.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember what it was called. Screen talk.
Let's go with that.
Too much time.
Valor Global Online. We're sorry. We forgot.
But the whole point was how to have these interactions. But that's the first time she had ever heard about sexting. Probably in the depth. We've talked about it before, but she didn't have a phone, and she has very limited access to who she's talking about. So she hasn't encountered it. Where Delaney was in a public school, very different experience, and it was kind of funny to see the difference between the two. But the sexting comment came out for Delaney when she was in 4th grade, and she's like, "What does that mean? What does that sexting mean?" And I thought, okay, this is a really great opportunity to go a little deeper because she was in a public school and there were people talking about it. And I wanted to get in front of the description before this boy ruined it. So, but I don't even know how she came up with what sex was. That was probably the best part. Do you remember the story?
Mm-hmm. I do.
And I said, "What do you think sex is?" She goes, "Well, we did a good job on this."
If you're taking notes right now, you should write this down.
Yeah. She said it's when a mommy and daddy have love. That was the have love, and they kiss on the couch, and then the couch turns red.
Boom. I had no idea. I learned something.
I don't know that we've ever done this. I don't know that you and I have ever had.
How'd the couch turn red?
Any of that.
Magical. Yeah.
And the beauty of the innocence in her response was, okay, you don't really know, but what you do know is enough of that mommy and daddy have to love each other. And then there's kissing involved. And I don't know what the couch came on. She must have walked in on us kissing on the couch or something. And I don't know if the hat goes red, but
maybe she got embarrassed and turned red.
Yeah, she bolted after that. But again, how the rest of the story goes is I took her out. We had this conversation, and then I started explaining to her, because I'm a practical person and I'm visual, and I'm trying to figure out how do I give the analogy of what sex actually is. And the only thing I had was my key and the ignition in the car.
Perfect.
So I start describing that this is like boy's penis and this is like girl's vagina because of how they work and that they fit together. And then I turn on the car and I'm like, and that's sex. Engine's revving. It's all sorts of good. We talked about ejaculation. We talked about all the things that happen and, what happens when you ejaculate and what's the baby. And I didn't go quite into the menstruation cycle with, her not yet on her period. We've done that now. But I didn't get into, I just said there's an egg waiting for it. I'm glad that she's now clarified that not every single time we have sex that there's going to be an egg waiting ready. But we went into the CVS, I think it was after that, to pick out nail polish because we were making a day of it.
Mm-hmm. Red nail polish?
Yeah,
was it red?
Probably red. Yeah. But I remember being in the nail polish section of the whatever it was, drugstore, and we're standing there and we're kind of continuing the conversation, but she didn't want to have the conversation anywhere but in the car, which was great. And she all of a sudden says, "Mom, what's the white stuff that comes out of a boy's penis again?" When he ejaculates. And I'm just thinking, okay, we are having this conversation as if she's asking to get orange juice for breakfast tomorrow. Yeah. And there are enough people around and in the aisle with us that are now looking at us. And this is that moment where we're trying to create a safe place and not shame and get embarrassed, because that was an embarrassing moment. It was awkward. And I just said, "Oh, well, that's called semen. What color did you want to pick out?" I mean, I just rolled right with it. And not everybody has that skill. I get it. And it's hard. But if you're faced with that moment, the best thing you can do is to just lean into it.
Yeah.
And think about the long-term impact that moment would have had if I would shushed her or kind of had a panic. All it would do is it would mark that moment of, I can't talk about this with mom because she's uncomfortable with it. And, I don't know that the kids necessarily always want to talk about sex. I think that different personalities have different things, but that was probably my favorite moment of talking about sex with Delaney, using the car and the key. The hard part now, there's push start buttons, so that doesn't really work. It breaks down if you got a newer car. You got to find something else, an outlet maybe. But that was a really great age, I felt.
Yeah.
To start having that conversation and really understanding the design of these two parts, how they work together, what they create, what it should be within a covenant. And then we've just progressed since then. And so we've had that conversation with Adeline. Adeline has more questions. Adeline's a little bit more wired like me. Delaney's more caught up in the romance of it. Adeline's more caught up in the logistics of it. It's just the difference of the kids. I think Lincoln's more, you're handling more of those sex conversations than I am, so I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, he very much, he has a little crush right now. He has a little girl that he just thinks is wonderful, which is great. I love that he gets to experience that and feel that.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also got this big justice thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a big right and wrong. And there's right and there's wrong in this world, in this conversation. So he's like, there's certain lines I will not cross.
Yeah.
So when something comes on in a commercial or
It's true.
on the movies, he like shields his eyes still, which I love. I love that you feel
He's
like
11.
you know you have to protect your head, your heart, and your parts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's probably a day coming where he's going to be faced with a bigger decision, and he's going to have to figure out: do I want to keep protecting myself, or am I across a different line? And we'll keep having those conversations.
Yeah.
But as you're talking about Delaney and just even that shocking question in the aisle, I was kind of thinking about, you know, the discipline approach we have with our kids is, I'm not looking to create a moment. I'm looking to catch the moment when it shows up and do a good job with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when you make a mistake, I want to help you learn right now. So I will stop what I'm doing
Yeah.
and show up in this moment. I think it's the same with sex. If we're able to create a safe place with our kids, they're going to have questions probably when I least expect it. And so me doing a good job of like putting down what feels really important to me and catching that moment, even if it's just 2 minutes, you know, even if it's just this moment like you described, but I'm ready and willing to create a safe place, keep that going, but then answer this question to satisfy the need and help you learn here from me, not from something out there. Because that's it feels like such an important conversation. Because there is an enemy out there that is using this world, this conversation, this God-ordained desire inside of us to just create a mess out there. That's just a mess taking place. And as parents, we have such a huge responsibility. And we're all living in our own mess at some level. You know, we're having to recover from our own mess. We're having to relearn new things. But catching those moments and doing a good job just feels so important. So that's my big encouragement to parents, to us as well, is let's just keep looking for those moments. So when it does show up, I'm like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, and a lot of parents that ask this question, it's usually little kids that are discovering their penis or vagina, and they're like playing with them, rubbing them, and they're freaking out.
Yep.
It's more a conversation of, we don't need to touch ourselves all the time, but if it's itchy, scratch it, I guess, but we're not going to hang out here. That's kind of how I just rolled with it. Like,
Totally.
We don't need to obsess over it. And the more that I make a big deal about it, the more power these kids feel like they have. It's not even sometimes, I've had conversations with parents where they're very scared about this. And I said, if you stopped giving it so much attention when it happens, what would happen? And it usually just phases out and we move on. I'm like, yeah, it's great. So that's like the younger years. It's when you're starting to get into that preteen and then teen, early teen, and then, high schooler. Did you do a good job of being willing to have this conversation here and continue it, which we've talked about so much, is that you have to continue this conversation. But a big part for me is the willingness to start and you be okay with having this conversation wherever you feel like they're most ready. And if your kids are in a school or encounter this and need to have this conversation sooner, then navigate that.
Yeah.
I love the Holy Spirit for this because He gives you breakthrough. He gives you creative solutions. So if you go it alone, you're probably going to feel alone. But if you invite Him in, there's a lot more peace and there's a lot more confidence to, leaning in and having a hard conversation or what might feel like a hard conversation. I want our kids, when it comes to sex for our kids, I don't want them to be consumed with what we hate about it. Or what we're afraid of it. I want them to be consumed with what we love about it and what we value about it. And that requires me to talk about the goodness of it rather than being so afraid of it.
Yep.
And, I think there was moments I created, especially with Delaney and with Adeline, now that she's in middle school, those, what do you know about oral sex? And I don't walk in there and say, okay, it's almost bedtime. What do you know about oral sex? That's not necessarily how this goes. It's usually conversations around they like a boy or something's going on, or they are telling me about something they heard, and so that's that moment where, okay, I get to lean in and teach here. And I usually ask the question, like, what is oral sex? What do you think that is? What does that mean? And I am having a hard time keeping up with all of the trendy words that are out there because I don't know what they are. But
it changes every 10 minutes. So.
It does feel like it changes often. So even that, I think Seth even mentioned this, like calling it what they're going to hear it to be called or whatever it's being referred to. So don't be afraid to clarify those things for your kids. I think that's the really big thing. And then, going into high school, we had some hard bumps for sure. And, if you've read my book at all, it's in there. And we navigated those. And the biggest thing in those really scary moments of, Delaney making poor choices is we had a vision for this as our family. And I'm not going to give up on that vision. And I'm going to do what I can do as a parent. That's where I'm going to stay. I'm not going to overstep. I'm not going to try and control. I'm going to stay within my lanes and keep having this conversation, keep bringing it to the surface and not cower, because I honestly, in those moments, I felt like a failure to some sense. And I'm like, what can I offer? Nothing. And that's when I feel like the devil totally wins, is that we give up.
Yeah.
Because we're afraid of failure or defeat in this. So I think parents can just stay encouraged to whatever stage you're in, whether it's toddler, whether it's elementary, whether it's junior high or high school. Are you willing to keep having this conversation so it stays a normal part of your family culture?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just the keeping on the surface. And we are so willing to walk with you through the bumps. And watching Adeline and Lincoln learn and respond to Delaney's bumps. So we didn't expect any of that to happen. Like, oh my gosh, this girl is learning the hard way.
Yeah.
We thought we gave her the tools.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Our goal as parents is to stay connected to you and to your heart. And then watching how our kids are responding, like I'm just thinking about Adeline right now, how she's responding, knowing she has the Delaney story burnt in her mind. Like, okay, I learned some from her learning experience.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's the goal, is that we're all learning from each other because it's part of the culture. So let's keep talking about it. Let's keep learning and growing. And we're looking for those moments with our kids.
Yes, we are looking for those moments. So we do have a question, but I don't know that it completely is accurate to the sex conversation because we didn't have one that come in. But I thought, why not throw it in here? Since we were talking about all the different ages.
Yep.
This person came to us from Instagram. So again, if you've got questions, you can reach out to Ben and I or Seth and say, put it on the podcast, and we'll throw it on the podcast. So it says, do you think this stage that you are in now with them is easier than under age 10? When I say easier, I mean less frustrating, more happy times than struggling. Is it easier, Ben? What do you think?
Easier is a funny word. It's
that's
different.
what I was thinking.
We were talking to your dad recently, and I think we were describing Delaney kind of learning about adulting and moving into it. And, we're all kind of learning together with her and learning to become adult parents and all that. And he's talking about your brothers and just them navigating their own problems and their own all their adult problems. And he's like, I would trade that one for this at any moment.
The adult parenting.
Meaning parenting is just parenting no matter how far down the line you go.
Yeah.
And so I think, we love the stage when it came into, okay, they can put their own shoes on.
Yes.
They can feed themselves. There's no more diapers in the house.
Yep.
Those moments are always great. So maybe that's easier. But it just every age presents a whole new set of opportunities and challenges. And, I think we are in such a new season right now with all our kids out of elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel connected to them all, and it's amazing. And there's new challenges to face.
Yeah. I don't think that you ever stop being inconvenienced as a parent.
That's a good way to say it.
That's the word easier.
Yeah.
We never stop being inconvenienced. It's just there's lots of inconvenience that's happening. There's lots of selfishness that still happens. I think even adult children to infants,
Humans.
yeah, that's kind of the nature of it. I think that it's seasons, but the thing that I think about with when they were little, under 10, they didn't know how to intentionally hurt us. They just were selfish little people, that were demanding of our time and sleep, and finances, but it was in the form of food and diapers. Once they get older, they can now develop the intention to hurt or withdraw or disconnect.
Yep.
And so that feels harder.
Painful.
Because it's pain. It's a different level of pain. This is extreme discomfort.
Yeah.
But they don't actively choose to disconnect here normally till they get older. And then that's the thing that you're facing. And then when they're adults, they can now put power behind that disconnect, where when they're home, they're kind of still forced to, need you and your money. Well, at adult age, now they can say, I don't ever want to see you or have anything to do with you, and they can cut you out. Yeah. So I don't know that easier is here. Honestly, less painful and easier is probably back here, though it may not feel like it.
Yeah.
So we pray for you in your sleep and that toil and trouble and exhaustion. It's just different.
I think that's part of the question here too is give me some hope, because right now I'm swimming in diapers, screaming children, and they never are not hungry.
That's your big thing. They're always hungry.
They're always hungry. But I think I understand that. Mm-hmm. Can I just get some hope? Because it looks really fun up there when we can go on roller coasters together.
Totally.
We just had a conversation with a family recently. They went to some theme park and we're like, we got to go on roller coasters with all our kids.
Yeah.
And that's all we did. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I dream of that day.
But you go back here and, Delaney and Adeline and Lincoln don't make funny little chicken noises anymore when they try and, they're not, the wonder of the world doesn't exist anymore.
In the same way.
It's a different wonder of the world. So people ask me, like, what's your favorite season of parenting? And I say the one I'm in right now.
That's great. Yeah.
Because if I can't be grateful for the season I'm in right now, then I'm always looking for something different, which means I'm missing the moment I'm in.
Now you're preaching.
A little bit. So I know it's hard.
Yeah.
Because I have been there. Graham crackers smushed in the carpet, goldfish in my bra. I don't even know how I got in there. There's now Sharpie on the wall and the toilet's clogged. I've been there. I know it. But if I cannot find the joy in that season, then I'll be constantly looking for it in the next season, which means I won't find it. So my best advice to you with kids, whatever age they are, is find the joy in your season right now, because you won't ever get it back.
So good.
And let that be your favorite season.
Yep.
So
this is it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on Imperfect Parenting, and we will see you later.